Okay, today we're doing a tripod comparison. We've got the Aziak, the MUTNT, this guy right here, and then the Tricer behind me that the rifle's on. Starting out with a shooting comparison, because I get asked, I'd say way too often, if you can shoot off of these tripods. The answer is obviously yes. You can shoot off of a stick. These tripods are meant to be lightweight. They're not going to be an ideal shooting solution, but for a backpacking hunt, you can totally do it. I'm going to run a couple rounds sitting down and standing up off of each tripod, see if I notice any difference. I kind of don't think I will, but after that, we'll go back to the studio, run through some specs, and I'll give you my opinions on each. We've got a rock out there at about 1,000 yards, so we're going to take a couple shots, and I'm going to be focused mostly on stability of the tripod and what I notice, but like I said, I mean, you'll see it rock back. That's what you want, and it's just 3 legs, so I don't expect to see a whole lot of difference here. Forgot to turn my hat backwards. So with this one, I was able to get back just in time to see impact. I wasn't pushing forward real hard. That's going to kind of depend on your shooting situation, but I was able to get back onto that rock to see impact. This is a 7 PRC with a muzzle brake, so I'd say the recoil is about average of what you'd expect from a hunting rifle. We'll move on to the Aziak here. This one does have a different head on it, and I'm just going to leave it. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm noticing any difference here between this tripod and that tripod. Now we have the MUTNT. A little left on that one. Again, it's all 3 pretty much the same when you're sitting down like this. I'll do a couple shots standing up, see what we get. So we will start once again with the Tricer. And I do expect to see a few differences here, just in the way that the tripod holds weight. So right away, I'll hold down here. You'll notice some springiness in the center column, and it looks like the legs are flexing a bit. I will say, I'm a big fan of this DZ head for a lightweight shooting head. Just barely able to get back in the scope to see impact. I will say this one does feel like it has less wobble. I don't notice the legs flex when I push this, and the center column has a little more stability. I think overall this tripod is a little more solid with the weight of a gun up there. I may have proven myself wrong. I do think the Aziak allowed me to come back into the scope and get back on target to see my impact a little bit quicker. Back to the MUTNT. We might be even more sturdy. It's very similar, if not more sturdy than the Aziak, so that's not overly surprising considering this is a little heavier tripod and a little thicker leg sections, but the overall build quality seems to be really good on this tripod. Pretty similar to the Aziak, honestly. I was able to get back in the scope quite quick. I am going to shoot off the Tricer one more time. So we're back on the Tricer because the other 2 performed pretty similar. This one seemed to be a little looser, and I think that stands true. I noticed more flexing throughout the whole tripod than the other 2. So we'll just take one more shot and then call it a day. Not as much of a difference as I had thought at first, but I would say out of the 3, the Tricer is the least stable, Aziak's next, and then the MUTNT is probably top when you have this much weight on top of it. Again, that's not surprising considering this is the lightest, Aziak's next, and then the MUTNT's next. So that's enough fun. Run back to the studio real quick, run you guys through some specs, and talk to you about my opinions on the functionality of each tripod. The fun part's over, but these tripods are not designed to be shot off like I said before. They're designed to use for glassing in the backcountry with occasional shooting purposes. So we're going to talk about specs on each and then functionality, what I like, what I don't like, and focus on the use of glassing because that's going to be 95% of the time that you're using these tripods. We have the Tricer AD, the Aziak Frontcountry, and then the MUTNT CF69. So a couple specs. Price first, you're going to be looking at $350 for both of these. You're going to be looking at $470, $480 for the MUTNT, so it's quite a bit more. Full transparency, we do sell the Aziak and the Tricer. We don't sell the MUTNT, nothing against it though, and nobody's paying us to do these videos, so I'm giving you my honest opinion here. Now for load capacity, you're looking at 26 pounds, 35 pounds, and then 44 pounds. I've found that actual load capacity to be, you know, kind of questionable. They say max for a reason. I think all three of these handled a 10-pound gun just fine. Looking at minimum pack height, the Aziak does come out ahead, whereas the Tricer and the MUTNT are almost identical. Aziak is probably 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches shorter. We'll do a quick measurement of circumference here, just to get an idea of how well they'll fit in your pack. You got 11 inches on the largest part of the Tricer. You're looking at 9.25 on the Aziak, and then about 10.5 on the MUTNT, just under 10.5. All three of these tripods are going to have standard rubber feet. They all do have a hook at the bottom. The Tricer hook does make a little noise, and I think there's a way to fix that, but the Aziak hook and the MUTNT hook are set in, so there's no spring, but also no noise. Now in terms of minimum prone height, all three of these tripods have the option to move the leg out. However, only the Aziak and the Tricer have the option for a removable center column or a shortened center column. The MUTNT, what you see is what you get. That's about as low as it can go. Obviously you can bring these legs out, but this center column is going to stop you from going any lower. With the Aziak, you can unscrew this tool right here, bring this up, unscrew this, lock in Allen key there, remove that top piece, and then use this same tool to unthread this center column. So that's how you get the Aziak shorter. For the Tricer, it does come with a shorter center column. All you do is pull the bottom off, slide that up and out, put your new center column in. But the downside of the Tricer is you got to make sure that you bring that center column and that you don't lose it. The downside of the Aziak is that it takes a little more time to convert, and having a multi-section center column creates a slight catch point right here. One more thing I will mention while we're talking about center columns is the fact that the Aziak has a lock that locks the collar in, whereas the Tricer does not. So if you are removing your tripod head, sometimes this collar will come off. It does not look like the MUTNT's collar is actually removable, so you won't have that issue there. Last thing we'll do real quick is maximum height. And I'll talk about the fact that this Tricer has a fairly stiff lock to where you have to untwist it more than a quarter turn to get a fully loose leg section. Just in contrast, the Aziak allows you to do very small amount of turns and you get a full unlock. I think the Aziak has a little more noise than the Tricer. The MUTNT, however, is going to be quite a bit quieter. And I really like that about this tripod. It feels smooth, it feels quiet. And overall it has a nice refined feel, even though, as you can see, this one's fairly used. And I will note that all of these tripods are used through testing and personal use, and I wanted to review them like that because things change when you get a little dust in them. So looking at maximum height, you're going to be about 50 inches on the Tricer, 52 inches on the Aziak, 53.25 on the MUTNT. Maximum height with your center columns extended is going to be looking at 63.5, 67, and 70 inches. So you can see there's a significant difference between the MUTNT and the Tricer. A little bit, Aziak's kind of right in the middle. I'd say the Tricer is tall enough for most people's applications, and then as you get higher up in these tripods, it is nice to have that extra height when you're glassing down a hill potentially, and you need to have that tripod lower than your actual body. So there is a benefit to having that extra height. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual functionality of these tripods, because there are a couple of differences that you might not notice if you're just looking at them on the website. Now the first one is going to be the Tricer. It is going to have reverse twist legs. That's probably the biggest standout feature about this one compared to the other two. What I mean by that is the leg lock is flipped. So it twists the opposite direction of most tripods. The benefit is two things. Number one, you have your largest section down here at the bottom where it's going to be the most vulnerable. So the part that gets the most wear is also going to be the most durable out of these three sections. Number two is that when you're adjusting your tripod, your adjustments are all going to be up here because you want to adjust with the smallest part of your leg, that way you're not having to reach down. Aziak is going to be very standard. You do have only a quarter twist on these leg locks, which I like. The Tricer, you do need to unscrew it a little bit more, and you just have a standard section. Now these legs are a little bit larger in diameter than the Tricer, but not by much. Onto the MUTNT, the main thing that's different is the fact that this is cam locks instead of twist locks. So cam or lever locks is the way that you secure the leg. Flip it up, flip it down. I haven't been a fan of this style of locking mechanism on a tripod in the past because I don't think anyone's quite done it right, but I think MUTNT nailed it. Number two thing that I like is that they're low profile. I don't like cam locks that stick out because they grab on your pack when you're sliding it in and out. These will still do that to a point, but they are pretty well designed, I'd say. The actual smoothness of the leg is very nice in my opinion. It's enough tension to where it's not flopping around and making noise, but it does slide out easily. We'll talk about leg angle locks real quick. The Tricer is going to have a push button. With all of these, you have to push the leg in a little bit to get this lock to disengage, and then you can bring it up. Now, the Tricer from the factory is a little stiff on the legs, so I would recommend loosening these bolts just a bit, not too much, so that you have a little easier leg movement. But you have a spring, and you can go all the way up on the Tricer. As you come back down, it locks into place in all three notches. The Aziak's going to have a different design. You push this leg in and pull out. It stays out until you come up to the top. You cannot bring this leg all the way up, but it does drop back down for all three leg sections. There's one reason that I like this over the Tricer, and that is that I can lift this up and then come down and put my hand at the bottom of the leg where there's going to be the most leverage. I don't have to be up here trying to move it. I can pop it up, move it from down here. I also like that it stops at the top. A lot of tripods don't have that automatic drop-in, so I like that about this one. The MUTNT is going to look much the same as the Aziak. It's a little noisier, but it also doesn't have a drop-in. So there's no spring that drops it back in. If you want to hit that second notch, you have to depress it well, bring it up, and then double click it like that. And then you also have to bring it in for that bottom notch. I am not sure why you wouldn't have a spring like the Aziak, so I would say that's a minus for the MUTNT, although it does stop when you're at max extension just because it does hit. In terms of center column, you're going to see a circular carbon fiber center column on the Tricer. The actual lock for that center column is going to be a twist lock. The downside of something that is a twist lock above your collar is that it adds another 1.5 inches of height to your tripod. The upside is it's really easy to grab and you have a fair amount of space to hold that steady. With that being said, I've found that there's a decent amount of play in the Tricer at that center column. The Aziak is going to be a concave triangular aluminum center column. Like I said, there is a little bit of a hitch right where that column separates, but it's not bad. You get used to it. In terms of overall play, this one seems to be better. Obviously it's not going to be perfect, but it's pretty dang snug. The MUTNT has an aluminum triangular center column. It's a little noisier when you're bringing it up, and the play is a little worse than I expected, but still not horrible. Now, when we compare all of them, you got that much on the Tricer, that much on the Aziak, that much on the MUTNT. So none of them are that bad. I'd say the Tricer and the MUTNT are kind of the same, and then the Aziak seems to be a little bit tighter, but not by too much. I will say though, I noticed quite a bit more stability in both of these tripods when there was a rifle on it. So under weight, it seemed like these two performed better than the Tricer. In terms of leg stability, all three of these are going to be pretty similar in the real world application, but I'll give you a bit of a pressure test here to show you some of the play in each. So I'm not putting much pressure, and there's not a ton of bend. Higher pressure, pretty good, honestly, especially when you consider the fact that this tripod weighs 33 ounces. Again, pretty similar. Now this is not a very technical test. Obviously, you have the human variable, which is myself. It seems like there's more spring in the actual collar here than I'm seeing in the leg section. One thing I forgot to mention is that all three of these tripods have an Allen key that goes in and secures the head of your tripod. So when you put the head back on any of these tripods, extend the center column up a bit and screw that Allen key in. That's going to lock your tripod head down so that when you're adjusting your pan, it doesn't come unthreaded. You no longer need to put Loctite on your tripods, which is really nice. Now, if you are looking at a tripod other than one of these three, make sure that it's got that Allen key that's going to lock your tripod head in. If it doesn't, I'd probably steer clear of it just because that feature alone saves you so much headache in the field from having your tripod head come unscrewed. So all that data is nice, but what does it really mean when it comes time to choose one of these to buy? I've used all of them and I can give you pretty much my honest opinion here. The Tricer is going to be the lightest. It's also going to be a little less refined and a little less stable than these other two options. And that's not necessarily the product's fault. When you start pushing the limits of how light you can get, you are going to have sacrifices like that. Overall, the Tricer has been well taken by a ton of hunters, and we've sold a lot of them with very few complaints. I will also note that I received an AD tripod with a defect in the leg section. The glue had come undone. I contacted Tricer through the normal channels, and they were very quick to respond. They actually sent me a new tripod as soon as I sent the old one back. So I got a whole new product. Customer service experience was really great there. Now for the Aziak, this is actually my personal tripod. So this is the one that I do choose, and a few reasons. Number one is I love how small it gets. I'll take the extra 5 ounces for that extra packability there. I also think that overall the product feels a little more refined. The way that everything moves, the way that it's held up to dust and other use. I've been really happy with this item, and really very few things on it that I would ask to have changed. For the MUTNT, this is the one that I've probably used the least. It wasn't really on my radar until fairly recently, but I'm actually really impressed by it. There's a few things that I would like to see changed. Number one being the leg lock angle option. I like how the Aziak has the spring. Number two would be the noise of that center column. And I think number three would be the option for a shorter center column. Although that's not a huge deal for me. In reality, I've taken that center column down maybe twice. So the MUTNT was a really impressive product, and I was very happy to see that someone finally got cam locks right on a tripod. Overall, any of these three options are going to be phenomenal, and compared to where we were 3-4 years ago with tripods, I'm really happy to see that people are coming out with a proper product that really doesn't need much advancement anymore. So if you're looking to get these tripods, we do sell the Aziak and the Tricer. Go to gearful.com, start earning some waypoints, get money back on the purchases you make. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, helps us make some more like it. Thanks for watching, guys.